I felt my stomach twist into a knot as I watched Griffin's reflection in the conference room glass. That smirk, the one I'd come to recognize as danger, appeared just as I reached slide 15, my financial projections section. 23 minutes into the most important presentation of my career, and I could see him shift in his seat, leaning toward Lena, the head client. Their whispered exchange lasted only seconds, but I caught every subtle change in her expression, interest morphing into concern, then hardening into something colder. The other four client representatives exchanged glances, their bodies tensing in synchronized discomfort. I apologize for interrupting, Lena said, standing abruptly. She smoothed her blazer with one hand, avoiding eye contact. We've decided to terminate your contract. The room went silent. My throat closed up as all eyes turned to me. I stood alone at the front, my carefully crafted presentation still projected on the wall behind me, months of work suspended in mid-sentence. May I ask why? I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. Lena glanced at Griffin, who gave a barely perceptible nod. Your boss has shared some concerning patterns with us, she replied. He's convinced us you're unstable, brilliant, but erratic. We need consistency for a project of this magnitude. The betrayal cut deeper because I'd anticipated something. Just not this. Not here. Not now. Not so publicly. Griffin rose, straightening his tie. I tried to warn you about this, Amara. The leadership team had concerns, but I pushed for giving you this chance. His voice dripped with performative regret. I'm disappointed it's ended this way. 7 people watched as I stood there, exposed, my career unraveling in real time. The worst part? I caught the pleased glint in Griffin's eyes. This was exactly what he wanted. I understand, I said quietly, closing my laptop. Each movement felt mechanical as I gathered my things, hyper-aware of every pair of eyes following me. I refused to rush, refused to show how my hands wanted to shake. As I reached the door, something shifted inside me. Months of frustration crystallized into clarity. I turned back, making direct eye contact with both Griffin and Lena. By the way, I said, check your inbox. I didn't wait for their response, but as the door closed behind me, I caught their expressions changing. Griffin reached for his phone with unusual urgency, and Lena was already opening her laptop. My heart pounded against my ribs as I walked steadily down the hallway. The game had finally begun. Before we continue this story, I want to thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this corporate revenge tale so far, please hit that like button to help more people discover it. Drop a comment with your thoughts on what you think Amara sent to their inboxes. And if you're new here, subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's get back to what happened after I left that room. My name is Amara Lynn. Until 6 months ago, I was the rising star of business development at our consulting firm. I'd built my reputation on a simple principle: deliver what others call impossible, then make it look easy. My analytical mind, combined with genuine people skills, made me the go-to person for challenging clients and complex projects. I worked hard, stayed humble, and believed results would speak for themselves. Then Griffin arrived. He joined as our new department head last year, after a much-hyped career at a competitor. His reputation preceded him, the miracle worker who turned failing departments into gold mines. In his interviews, he stressed the importance of team cohesion and mentoring talent. Leadership was thrilled to have landed him. I remember our first meeting clearly. He scanned my portfolio with an impressed expression, asked insightful questions about my approaches, and seemed genuinely interested in my career goals. We're going to accomplish amazing things together, Amara, he said, his warm smile reaching his eyes. I can already tell you're something special. For 2 glorious weeks, I believed him. Then came the first strategy meeting. With leadership, I'd prepared a comprehensive analysis of a new market sector with significant growth potential. My data showed a clear opportunity others had missed. When I shared these findings with Griffin beforehand, he seemed genuinely impressed and encouraged me to present them. But when the meeting came, Griffin spoke first. Before we begin, I've identified an overlooked opportunity I'd like to share. He proceeded to present my exact findings, my research, my numbers, my conclusions, all as his own breakthrough discovery. I sat frozen, watching leadership nod appreciatively at his brilliance. When he finished, he turned to me with a smile. Amara, I believe you had something to present as well? What could I say? That he'd stolen my work? Without proof, I'd look petty and desperate. So I swallowed my pride and presented my additional thoughts on a different topic I'd hastily prepared as backup. Later that afternoon, the department received a congratulatory email praising Griffin's innovative thinking and market foresight. I stared at my computer screen for a full minute before closing it. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a misunderstanding, maybe even a test to see how I'd react. It wasn't. Over the next few months, a pattern emerged with disturbing precision. Projects I managed began encountering mysterious obstacles. Resources I'd been promised would vanish overnight. Key information reached me late, making me miss deadlines I'd never missed before. Meanwhile, Griffin would step in to rescue situations he'd quietly sabotaged, earning praise from above for his problem-solving abilities. In meetings, my ideas were dismissed as underdeveloped, then would reappear weeks later from Griffin's mouth, slightly repackaged but essentially identical. When I tried to point this out, he'd smile sympathetically and suggest I was misremembering the timeline. Most painful was watching my hard-earned reputation erode. Colleagues who once sought my input began avoiding me. I overheard whispers in the break room. Brilliant but difficult. Unpredictable. Can't handle pressure anymore. My performance reviews shifted from glowing to concerning, citing consistency, issues, and communication problems, the very areas where I'd previously excelled. I considered resigning. Why stay where I wasn't valued? But something kept nagging at me. The perfect precision of my downfall. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't normal workplace politics. This was calculated destruction, methodical and patient. One evening, working late, I encountered our IT director in the empty office. Jamal had been with the company for 15 years, surviving multiple leadership changes. We'd always had a good rapport, though we rarely worked directly together. Still here, Amara? He asked, pausing by my desk. That's dedication. Or desperation, I replied, too tired to filter myself. He studied me for a moment, then lowered his voice. You know, I've seen this movie before. What movie? The one where a rising star suddenly can't do anything right after a new leader arrives. My heart skipped. You have? Jamal nodded slowly. Griffin has a history at his last 3 companies. What kind of history? He glanced toward the hallway. The kind where he identifies the biggest threat, isolates them, then pushes them out or takes credit for their work. Once they're gone, he moves on to the next target. How do you know this? IT people talk across companies. We see patterns others miss. He tapped my desk twice. Just be careful what you put in writing, and maybe consider who benefits most from your current struggles. As Jamal walked away, something shifted in my perspective. I'd been playing defense, trying to protect my reputation, trying to prove my competence. But Griffin wasn't playing that game at all. He was playing chess while I was playing checkers. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't compile grievances or collect evidence of past wrongs. I wouldn't file complaints that would mark me as difficult, regardless of their merit. Instead, I would study Griffin himself, understand his patterns, find his weaknesses, and then, with patience, I would set the stage for him to reveal his true nature to everyone who mattered. What I discovered next would change everything, and ultimately lead to that fateful presentation where everything fell apart, or so Griffin thought. Over the next 2 weeks, I observed Griffin with new clarity. What had seemed like random cruelty now revealed itself as a carefully orchestrated system. He wasn't just stealing credit, he was methodically dismantling anyone who might outshine him. His primary weapon wasn't aggression, but manipulation. He'd praise you publicly for minor achievements while quietly undermining your significant contributions. He'd offer helpful feedback that actually planted seeds of doubt. He'd position himself as your advocate while telling others you needed guidance. But his most revealing trait was how he savored victories. When someone he targeted stumbled, his eyes would light up with unmistakable pleasure, not just satisfaction, but genuine delight in their public humiliation. Griffin didn't just want success, he needed to witness others fail while he succeeded. This was his weakness: vanity, not simple egotism, but a deeper need to be recognized as superior by making others appear inferior. He required an audience. Without witnesses, his victories meant nothing. Understanding this changed my approach entirely. I stopped trying to protect myself from his attacks and started planning how to use them instead. My strategy was counterintuitive, but simple. I would feed his hunger for public triumph while systematically creating a network that would eventually recognize his pattern. I wouldn't fight each battle, I'd change who judged the war. The plan required 3 components: creating opportunities for Griffin to undermine me, building genuine relationships with key stakeholders, and patience. Lots of patience. First, I began developing proposals with subtle vulnerabilities, nothing obvious, but questions an experienced reviewer might raise. In team settings, I'd suggest bold approaches, then appear to waver when Griffin questioned them. Each time, I watched him grow more confident, more careless in his maneuvers against me. Amara's concept lacks market validation, he'd announce in meetings, though I deliberately left those details for verbal presentation. I'm concerned about her grasp of the fundamentals here. While Griffin focused on undermining me internally, I built connections externally, not seeking allies against him. That would seem unprofessional, but creating relationships with implementation teams at client companies. I made myself valuable to them, responsive to their needs, consistent in my approach. You're the only one who actually explains the reasoning behind recommendations. Trey from operations at our biggest client told me during a call. Everyone else just hands down directives. I believe understanding drives commitment, I replied. Data without context is just noise. These weren't strategic conversations about Griffin, just authentic professional relationships based on mutual respect. But they would become crucial when the moment arrived. The opportunity came unexpectedly with Moonshot Industries, a potential client whose business would double our department's revenue. I'd worked for months cultivating this relationship, and finally secured the chance to present our proposal. When Griffin demanded to attend my presentation despite having criticized the entire approach during planning, I knew exactly what would happen. Leadership reluctantly agreed to his participation, mentioning their concerns about me. The trap was set by Griffin himself. The night before the presentation, I sent messages to several key stakeholders at Moonshot, including Lena, the decision maker. My message was simple. If tomorrow you hear unexpected claims about my professional stability, would you trust your own experiences with me enough to question those claims? I didn't elaborate further. I didn't need to. The morning of the presentation, Griffin caught me in the hallway. "Big day, Amara," he said, straightening his cufflinks. "Nervous?" "Not at all," I replied truthfully. "I'm prepared." His smile tightened. "Remember, this client is crucial for the company. If you're feeling overwhelmed, I'm happy to step in." "I appreciate the support," I said, matching his smile. "But I've got this." The first 20 minutes of my presentation went flawlessly. The client team was engaged, asking thoughtful questions, I could see Griffin growing increasingly tense as positive momentum built. Then came the financial projections, my strongest section, and the perfect moment for Griffin to strike. As I advanced to that slide, I watched his reflection in the glass wall. He leaned toward Lena, whispering urgently, while maintaining a concerned expression. I continued speaking calmly, watching their interaction from the corner of my eye. Whatever he said worked. Her expression shifted from interest to alarm. Minutes later, she stood and terminated our contract, citing concerns about my stability. As I walked out after my parting message about checking their inbox, my heart hammered against my ribs. 6 months of planning, of swallowing pride, of strategic patience, all riding on what happened next. I made it to the empty bathroom before my legs gave out. Leaning against the cool tile wall, I took deep breaths. This was the moment everything could collapse, or everything could change. My phone buzzed. A message from Trey at Moonshot. What the hell just happened in there? Lena's getting bombarded with messages from our team. We've called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. You might want to see this thread. He attached screenshots of an internal conversation that had exploded across Moonshot's communication channels. Dozens of team members who'd worked with me over the past months were expressing confusion and disbelief at my sudden dismissal. They weren't just questioning the decision, they were challenging the very premise that I was unstable. And leading the charge was someone I hadn't expected. Moonshot's chief innovation officer, Zeke, who rarely involved himself in vendor relationships. His message to Lena and the entire executive team was direct. I've collaborated with Amara on 3 initiatives. Her work demonstrates exceptional consistency and vision. These claims contradict our direct experience. I'm halting this discussion until we understand what's happening. Attached was a calendar invitation labeled Strategic Alignment Review, scheduled for tomorrow morning, including representatives from every level of both organizations. My hand shook slightly as I lowered the phone. The first domino had fallen. The bathroom door swung open, and I straightened up quickly. It was Nina from marketing, her expression tight with discomfort. Amara, she said, clearly surprised to see me. I heard about the Moonshot presentation. News travels fast, I replied. Griffin's telling everyone it was a disaster, that you fell apart under pressure. She hesitated, but something doesn't add up. The Amara I know doesn't fall apart. I looked at her directly. What do you think is happening, Nina? She glanced toward the door, then back at me. I think we've all been seeing what we've been told to see, and maybe that's about to change. At that moment, my phone lit up again. A new email notification appeared on the screen, visible to both of us. From Lena Winters, Moonshot Industries. Subject: Tomorrow's meeting. Additional context requested. Nina's eyes widened as she read the preview. What did you do? I picked up my phone, a calm settling over me for the first time in months. I didn't do anything, Nina. I just stopped protecting someone who doesn't deserve protection. What happened in the next 24 hours would redefine not just my career, but the entire power structure of our department, and Griffin had no idea what was coming. I returned to my desk, heart racing, half expecting security to appear and escort me out. Instead, I found the office buzzing with unusual energy. People glanced my way, then quickly looked down when I met their eyes. Something had shifted in the atmosphere. My phone kept lighting up with notifications, messages from Moonshot team members expressing confusion, support, and most importantly, questions about Griffin's claims. I responded carefully, never attacking Griffin directly, just expressing appreciation for their trust and confirming I'd attend tomorrow's meeting. An hour later, my computer pinged with a calendar invitation from our CEO. Urgent, Moonshot situation debrief. 4:30 p.m. today, executive conference room. The attendees list included our CEO, the head of HR, Griffin, and me. My mouth went dry. This was happening faster than I'd anticipated. At 4:27, I walked toward the executive conference room, my steps measured and calm despite the storm inside me. As I approached, I heard raised voices, Griffin's distinctive tenor cutting through the closed door. Completely unprofessional. She's undermining months of relationship building because she couldn't handle feedback. I knocked once and entered. Three heads turned toward me. Our CEO Morgan, HR Director Vince, and Griffin, whose face flushed mid-sentence. Amara, Morgan said, gesturing to an empty chair. Please join us. Griffin's eyes narrowed. We were just discussing your behavior today. I sat down, placing my tablet on the table. I assumed as much. May I ask what specific behavior we're addressing? Morgan leaned forward. Moonshot Industries has requested an emergency meeting tomorrow morning with both our leadership teams. Lena Winters informed me that information came to light after your presentation that requires immediate clarification of our working relationship. Can you explain what happened? I felt Griffin's eyes boring into me as I answered. During my presentation today, I was informed that Moonshot was terminating our contract because Griffin had convinced them I was unstable. Shortly afterward, it appears several Moonshot team members I've worked with over the past months began questioning this characterization. And you orchestrated this response, Griffin cut in, his tone accusatory. I didn't orchestrate anything, I replied evenly. I simply asked key stakeholders a question last night. If they heard unexpected claims about my stability, would they trust their own experiences with me enough to question those claims? Vince frowned. You anticipated Griffin would undermine you. Yes, that's absurd, Griffin scoffed. Paranoid even, which rather proves my point about stability issues. Is it paranoid if it's exactly what happened? I asked quietly. The room fell silent for a moment. Morgan studied me, then looked at Griffin. What exactly did you say to Lena Winters during the presentation? Griffin straightened. I expressed concerns that have been documented in Amara's performance reviews. Her work has become erratic, her communication inconsistent. As department head, I have a responsibility to protect client relationships. By sabotaging my presentation? I asked. By providing necessary context, he countered. Moonshot needs reliability, not brilliant flashes followed by disappearing acts. Morgan held up a hand. What's concerning me is the response from Moonshot. Their chief innovation officer has personally intervened. That suggests a significant disconnect between your assessment of Amara and their experience with her. Griffin's smile tightened. With respect, they don't see her internal work. They get the polished final product, not the chaos behind it. I remained silent, letting his words hang in the air. Morgan turned to me. Amara, what's your perspective on this situation? This was the moment. I took a breath. For the past 6 months, I've experienced a systematic undermining of my work and reputation. Projects I led would mysteriously face obstacles. Resources would vanish without explanation. Deadlines would shift without notice. Griffin laughed incredulously. That's called working in a dynamic business environment. If you can't handle, and most notably, I continued calmly, ideas I presented in preliminary meetings would be rejected, only to appear later as Griffin's own insights. The accusation hung in the air. Griffin's laugh faded, his expression hardening. That's a serious allegation, Vince said carefully. Griffin leaned forward. It's also completely unprovable. We build on each other's ideas here. That's collaboration. If Amara feels threatened by the iterative process, I don't feel threatened by collaboration, I interrupted. I recognize the difference between building on ideas and systematic appropriation. Do you have any evidence of this pattern? Morgan asked, her expression neutral. I didn't document specific instances, I admitted. At first, I wasn't sure what was happening. By the time I recognized the pattern, documenting it would have appeared I'm paranoid. Griffin's smile returned, confident now. Exactly my point. These accusations come without evidence, fueled by insecurity. I've tried to mentor Amara through these challenges, but her resistance to feedback has made that difficult. Morgan nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. And tomorrow's meeting with Moonshot is an opportunity to salvage an important client relationship, Griffin answered smoothly. I suggest I lead the discussion, with support from our business development team. Not Amara? Vince asked. I think that would send the wrong message given today's events, Griffin replied. Morgan studied both of us for a long moment. Here's what we'll do. Both of you will attend tomorrow's meeting. Neither of you will lead it. I will. We'll hear what Moonshot has to say, and we'll respond professionally. Until then, I expect complete discretion from both of you. After the meeting, I walked back to my desk, uncertainty gnawing at me. Had I miscalculated? Griffin seemed unfazed, even confident. As I gathered my things to leave, he approached, stopping just close enough that no one could overhear. Impressive attempt, he murmured, but ultimately futile. Tomorrow, I'll express sincere regret that your personal issues have affected client relationships, offer to personally oversee the Moonshot account, and recommend a performance improvement plan for you, which you'll fail, of course. I looked directly into his eyes. You seem very confident. I've been here before, Amara, with people much more formidable than you. His smile didn't reach his eyes. By this time tomorrow, your credibility will be gone. The only question is whether you resign or get fired. He walked away, shoulders relaxed, the picture of confidence. That night was the longest of my life. I barely slept, running through scenarios, questioning my strategy, wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep, dressed carefully, and headed to the office early to prepare. At 8:45, our team assembled in the largest conference room. Moonshot representatives would be arriving at 9. Griffin entered looking immaculate, catching my eye with a small, victorious smile before taking a seat near the head of the table. At 8:55, Morgan approached me. Are you ready for this? Yes, I replied, though my racing heart suggested otherwise. Good, she said, then hesitated. For what it's worth, I've never known you to be erratic or difficult. That's why this situation is so puzzling. Before I could respond, the Moonshot team arrived, Lena leading, followed by 7 others, including Zeke, their Chief Innovation Officer, and Trey from Operations. Introductions were made, coffee offered, and at precisely 9, Morgan called the meeting to order. We're here to address concerns raised during yesterday's presentation, she began. I understand there's been some confusion about our team dynamics and evaluation processes. Lena nodded. Yes, we were given information about Amara that contradicts our direct experience. Before making any final decisions, we felt it necessary to clarify. Morgan turned to Zeke. I understand you've worked directly with Amara on 3 separate initiatives, he confirmed. Each time, her work was meticulous, her communication clear, and her follow-through exceptional, which is why Griffin's characterization yesterday was so jarring. Griffin leaned forward. If I may, actually, Lena interrupted. We'd like to hear from Amara first. All eyes turned to me. This was it, the moment everything hinged on. I took a deep breath. For months, I've experienced a pattern of undermining that I couldn't effectively address. Rather than make accusations without proof, I asked people who'd worked with me directly. If you hear claims that contradict your experience with me, would you trust what you've observed firsthand? And that's what happened, Trey added. When word spread that you'd been called unstable, our entire implementation team started comparing notes. No one recognized that description. Griffin cleared his throat. With respect, external perceptions don't always reflect internal realities. As Amara's direct supervisor, That's actually what we wanted to discuss. Zeke interrupted, opening a folder. We've compiled feedback from 23 Moonshot employees who've worked directly with Amara over the past 6 months. The consistency is remarkable. Meticulous preparation, clear communication, exceptional follow through. He slid the folder toward Morgan, who began reviewing its contents. Griffin's confident expression faltered slightly. Additionally, Lena continued, we received some illuminating communications after yesterday's meeting. She placed her tablet on the table and turned it toward our group. On the screen was an email from Griffin to her, dated 3 weeks ago. Confidential. Concerns regarding the Moonshot presentation. While Amara has been assigned as lead, I have significant reservations about her recent performance. I'm preparing contingency materials and will attend to ensure quality control. Please keep this between us as we assess her capability. Next to it was a second email from Griffin to Lena, sent 2 days ago. As discussed, I've prepared alternative approaches should tomorrow's presentation prove problematic. Between us, leadership is concerned about Amara's recent erratic behavior, but we're giving her this final opportunity to demonstrate stability. The room went absolutely silent. Griffin's face drained of color. I never received your alternative approaches, Lena said, her voice cool. And more importantly, we never had this discussion. Morgan turned slowly toward Griffin, her expression hardening. You told Moonshot our leadership had concerns about Amara before the presentation even occurred. I was being proactive, he began, his usual smooth confidence cracking. Contingency planning is part of my responsibility as what? Zeke interrupted. Someone who deliberately undermines team members. Griffin's eyes darted around the room, finding no allies. These emails are being taken out of context. My concerns about Amara's performance are documented. Yes, Morgan cut in. I reviewed her performance history last night. Exemplary until 6 months ago, when you became her supervisor. Then suddenly, communication issues, inconsistent delivery, difficulty accepting feedback. All subjective assessments from you, contradicted by client experiences and project outcomes. Griffin's confident facade crumbled completely. You can't possibly. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Morgan said to the Moonshot team, rising from her chair. We'll need to continue some of these discussions internally. In the meantime, I'd like to propose that Amara resume leadership of your account, with my direct oversight until we resolve these internal matters. Lena nodded. We'd welcome that arrangement. The meeting concluded with handshakes and relieved smiles. As the Moonshot team departed, Morgan turned to Griffin. My office. Now. To me, she added. Amara, we'll speak afterward. 2 hours later, Griffin was escorted from the building, personal items in a box, security beside him. By evening, a company-wide email announced his departure and my promotion to interim department head. The sweetest moment came a week later when I received an email from Jamal in IT. Thought you'd want to know. Griffin tried the same playbook at his last 3 companies. You're the first person who outsmarted him, instead of breaking under the pressure. Well played. My revenge wasn't exposing a single act of betrayal. It was illuminating a pattern by giving others the opportunity to see what had been happening all along. Griffin had been so fixated on controlling perceptions that he never imagined I would simply trust people to recognize reality when finally given the chance to see it clearly. Sometimes victory isn't won by fighting each battle. It's achieved by changing who determines the outcome of the war. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you for staying with me through Amara's journey. I hope it inspired you to trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Have you ever experienced workplace manipulation like this? Share your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find this story, and subscribe for more tales of justice served. Remember, Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back, but changing the game entirely.